Hi, this video I wanted to talk about the importance of having a foundational philosophy about stuff. I think part of the problem of the world right now is people don't have a foundation. They're not standing on solid ground in terms of their philosophy about life. And when you have too many people like that, then you have too many people who will just kind of become like sheeple, and then just do what they're told and without thinking, because they were never when they were younger taught or shown just the basic principles of what it means to be a human. Because if you have basic principles, then you can build off of that through the rest of your life, and then we can like agree on very basic things. I had some like oatmeal stuck in my teeth. I'm letting my food digest before I do my exercises for like 45 minutes. So I'm doing my video in the meantime. Yeah, so sometimes you hear somebody like, oh, that guy has no foundation. Like somebody like Donald Trump. They have no principles, just basic principles. And so I think we're lacking that. It's just the sickness of capitalism, where if money is the only thing that matters, we came through a great like a breakthrough in terms of the economic philosophy with Adam Smith, Wealth of Nations, where he thought out of the box and brought people out of mercantilism, which is how our economic system worked throughout the Dark Ages, where countries would try to be wealthy by hoarding gold, and whoever had more gold was the more wealthy country, because then they could suddenly invest it in a war and win the war. And then they would have like tariffs that would only benefit the rich, and they would rent out like land that it was the same price for the good land or the bad land, because it would just benefit the rich. And so it didn't give people like the incentive to produce and to and he realized that if we just started to trade more openly, do more free trade, and then the invisible hand would guide us. Like if people look out for themselves, then it would end up being good for society. And so we carried that forth into today, and it turned into capitalism. But we need another revolution, because that whole individual hand, look out for yourself, and that'll help everybody else, like, it's not working, because we're starting to realize we need actual government regulation. And because they don't have a foundation, these rich people don't have a foundation of taking care of society. Kind of like with the Industrial Revolution, when they carried people off of the land and put them in big cities, and utilized the land for industrial purposes and farming, and used every square inch of it. Everybody moved into town and put the poor people to work, and then just worked them to death. They worked a 20-year-old girl to death in Industrial Revolution, and like the 1890s, and just jam-packing them like sardines into rooms, and just getting away with what you could get away with, and calling that progress, just because the rich people were getting richer, and you could see like trains being built and stuff. That was because there was these guys had no foundation, no principles to work off of. The church served that purpose for a long time, but then people when this church started to lose power or to get too similar to the business world, where we're operated just like that, that it kind of, we didn't have any, we're left now with no general consensus that we can all have of allowing everybody to have equal opportunity and equal quality of life, like from equal pay. And so that's why nowadays all of these like society ills come apart. Like Peter Thiel said he doesn't want democracy. He's like, oh, democracy, whatever that means. I saw that guy Jeremy Boring from from Ben Shapiro's YouTube network, the Daily Wire, saying that it's time, and he's like even quoting Plato or Aristotle about the revolutions, and that it's time for us to have a revolution back to kingship and get away from democracy, because that's what Aristotle was talking about. You have democracy, and then you go back to like a totalitarianism, because he has no foundation he has no idea, no general idea of evolution of society. He thinks that we're just going around in circles. Yeah, so when the rich people start getting out there and their talking mouthpieces who they pay for, like the Daily Wire, start getting out there and start saying publicly that they need to get rid of democracy. The Trilateral Commission in like 1973 wrote a book called Crisis of Democracy that's on my website, where they actually wrote an entire book where they're saying that democracy needs to come to an end. And all of that is from rich people basically having a cynical view of the world around them. Cynicism meaning like ignorance mixed with arrogance. So they're ignorant that human beings are intelligent like them, and the only reason maybe they don't know the tricks of the trade to get rich is because they weren't born into wealth or weren't taught how to manipulate money. And then they're arrogant that they think that they're the most end all be all, most omniscient, smartest people in the world, and whatever they say. So then that brings rise to identity politics, where you have these certain groups of people who believe, certain principles that they have to follow, and if you don't follow those principles, then now you're one of the enemy. Like when Sam Cedar was up there with Patrick Bet-David and his goons, who were probably paid by other rich people. They're in there funding each other. Patrick Bet-David's like telling them about the taxing. You just tax the wealthy. That's how we won World War II. We taxed the wealthy 90%, so we could afford all that stuff to win the war. And then we kept taxing the people, like every dollar over $400,000, you get taxed 90%, and if we did that today, it would be like everybody who makes more than $1.5 million a year would get taxed 90% over a dollar. So it makes it like really hard to be richer than that, but that's as rich as you need to be anyway. And then Patrick Bet-David goes like, "Oh, so you're a socialist then?" So then it kind of shuts the conversation down, because now you're like one of the bads, and now like it's like what, dog whistling to all the other people in your political identity. And then that brings rise to projection. So then when they come across a bunch of other actually people who are grounded in reality and understand that everybody deserves equality of life, then you'll just they just label them as being identity politics. when it's the other way around, because you don't understand. You're just cynical. You don't understand what they're even talking about, and you think they're just being stupid because they're poor. Because now we're in a world where if you're rich, you're smart, and if you're poor, you're stupid, and it just creates more and more confusion and lack of ability to even talk about anything, because you just get like thrown in boxes and labeled, and like people refuse to talk to you, you know, like so that's why I think we need to, and it all comes from, I think, parenting and childhood. So, in a lot of ways, the most important job that you could have would be a teacher for kids, because you could plant in their minds the difference between right and wrong, and the concept um, of of progress in society, and not get cynical and say that progress is actually going back to, MAGA, and then make up some fantasy world like, oh, it's because the 60s were great because it was just a bunch of white people, instead of because they were taxing the wealthy. And so I think the main problem is basically the educational system. People don't have like a general, just a general knowledge of like humanities and history. When I was going to school, I had one quarter, which was half of a semester, which was like, let's see, the year is 9 months, a semester's 4 months, a quarter's like a couple months. I had like one quarter in 8th grade for government. That was the only class I ever had for government. And it was taught by like Dusty Rhodes' brother, the wrestler, who was like a hillbilly, who had this spittle on his mouth. It's disgusting to watch. Ugh. Mr. Runnels. No, he wasn't a bad teacher, but it wasn't, it was just us, like, we did some like debates, and it was just a really basic class, just mentioned the basic rules, and we had a couple of like conversations in class, and that was it. That was the only opportunity I had growing up my entire life, and in college included, of learning government. So they just stripped it out of our educational system. I would have known much more about government if I'd have just dropped out of school after 6th grade and read a few like government books, and and also philosophy, because then people can just pick and choose whatever they want from the past, and then fill in the blanks with whatever their own ideology is, and then all the people just go along with it. I saw a video once where Ben Shapiro was talking about the Federalist Papers, because I think I typed Federalist Papers once and on YouTube, and I saw him, and I'm like, okay. And so he's up there, and it's like a 10-minute video, and he's like, yeah, the Federalist Papers are really good. It's just one of the best books of America, because it's the foundation for America and the Constitution, and that was it. Like, he didn't even say anything. He was just up there like acting smart. So then that's where sophistry comes from. Sophistry is always something that's frowned upon by intellectuals, and seen as one of the big like dangers of society. And that's where like people in society are so ignorant that the leaders get to just use words to sound smart. Like, you get good at sounding smart because you know how stupid the people you're talking to are. So you don't have to be that smart to talk. You just have to know how to sound smart. So if you get up there and you say a bunch of the right words, but you don't even have a concept, then you can just fill in the blanks with whatever. So, you know, Ben Shapiro could be like, as a sophist, could be like, which is what he is. You could be like, oh yeah, Federalist Papers, the foundation of the, you know, of our government system, blah, blah, blah. And then be like, yeah, and so that's why, and because you're sounding smart, because you're labeling when it was written, you know, that it led to the Constitution, and you just say like 5 or 6 things that people don't know about it, and then you just launch into, without saying anything what the people were saying in the actual book, never even talking about any of the concepts in the book, you just launch into, and that's why we need to get rid of democracy. And because then, and then you make up stories like racist stuff, because then the third worlders will come and then they won't pay attention to the great books, you know. And so that's why we need to not let women vote, and raise the voting age to 25, and change, you know. And then you could change people, if people don't know anything, you can just change laws that have been around forever, and then just destroy the country. What would allow the country to get destroyed is when you don't protect laws that have been tried and true for 250 years. And all that stems from just a general lack of knowledge. The video I did right before here is very related to this video. It's called Omniscience. We need to understand the concept of omniscience. And so, or maybe another way to put it, and that's why I'm making it a whole nother video, is we need to have consensual reality. And I think that's why there's so much of a health crisis these days, because there's so many schizophrenics. Because, like, you know, schizophrenia, there's a lot of reasons for mental health. You know, you could have like a genetic propensity to it. Maybe you got poisoned by, you know, bad diet growing up, or pollution, or you got dropped on your head or something like that. But there's also like environmental causes for mental illnesses, like different types of traumas. And I think one environmental cause for schizophrenia can be when you're growing up in like a world of like extreme cynicism, that it's totally like detached from reality. And I think that's why a lot of like people who grow up extremely wealthy end up going crazy. Like Patty Hearst, who was the heir to the Hearst newspaper fortune. She like killed somebody. All the crazy things that the Kennedys do, crashing stuff and dying, like Robert Kennedy or whatever was that, Ted Kennedy, crashing the car in Chappaquiddick River and killing a woman, and just getting entitled and, you know, skiing into trees and stuff like that. Or you have like the DuPont guy who shot the wrestler Schultz on that Dreamwalker Ranch, because he was like a, you know, like if that DuPont dude had have been raised like in a normal house, he would have just been like a dumbass. But he wouldn't have come up with all of these crazy, done just crazy things, because then they can start acting out and acting crazy, and then just blaming it on their mental illness. Like once that guy, the DuPont guy, like drove a car into a lake with somebody in the back of it to try to like kill him, and he's like, oh, I just thought it was an airplane, I was taking off. And it's like they don't even believe it. Like I've had a friend who I lived with here in this apartment, who I won't drop any names, but like he's like one of these like entitled people, rich family and stuff, and all of a sudden he would like start beating up on my apartment, destroying things, and I'm like, and then I'm like, hey, what's going on? And then he'd like start yapping nonsense and screaming and then just yapping whatever. And then he did this one crazy thing where he punched a hole in my wall, and then I noticed it. It didn't break. It didn't go through the wall, but it made this huge crack. And I'm like, did you do that? And he goes, oh, no, but I think I know how it happened. Somebody probably got really mad in the level above us, and then punched the wall, and then like it reverberated through, and then it met here and cracked here. And I'm like, and I was almost was like, are you serious? Because like maybe he was just saying it just because he's like, well, now he's crazy because now he can say whatever he wants, And so it's there's no, and that all stems from when you never ever had to display any like common sense, because we just got used to people with that whole laissez-faire, invisible hand capitalism philosophy, where might makes right. If you're smart and you make money, then that is enough evidence of itself that you're smart, and you never ever have to talk about like the most basic conversations about the difference between right and wrong, and like from the beginning. So then it can just spiral out, and then you have all these crazy people saying whatever they want, and then the identity politics, and it gets really bad now because with social media, all of these like right-wing people in their echo chamber, like the woman who was dating the right-wing guys, she was saying that they all get all their information from like one type of source, like Andrew Tate, listening to him over and over again, and then they reinforce it amongst themselves. And so then they create these enclaves, and then it becomes identity politics, and then they that's when they start to create their own vocabulary, and now they're literally in their own like fantasy world that has nothing to do with reality, like the Scientologists. Scientologists have all of their own words for everything, and to the point they're basically speaking their own language, and then when you're hanging out with them, you don't know what the hell they're talking about, and then they're not trying to like teach you anything, unless you like pay them a bunch of money, and it can carry on over to other religions too. Like I was raised Buddhist here in Boulder, went to a Buddhist school, and people had their own vocabulary for stuff also, like and then if you try to philosophize with them and go, oh yeah, so samsara, that's like the blessings maybe that you would have, and then they're like, no, not that, and you're like, oh, okay, well maybe it is that would be kind of like having the light of God on you. No, not that. And then they just refute every single thing that you try to say, and it doesn't. Like in the beginning when Rinpoche came over, their basic reason that he wanted to get followers was, oh yeah, we're just bringing Eastern religion, and then we can try to cause religious synchrony, where you bring all the religions together, and then you connect, and then you can we can all understand each other, and maybe in the world create a new synthesized religion. But then it turns into the identity politics, where if you don't agree with every single thing that I say, then you don't understand, and we're not going to talk. Like when I left in 4th grade from that cult, when I dropped out of the school video, I remember thinking to myself, yeah, this is a total intellectual wasteland. Like that whole synchrony thing is all bullshit. These people are just brainwashed. Like I got kicked out because I left for a year, and then I didn't get kicked out, but like by the kids. I left for a year, and then I came back, and I thought I was funny because I was the class clown in 2nd grade, and I was telling jokes. In 2nd grade, I was telling jokes, and like I was just telling stories, just ridiculous stories, like making up stories. that were obviously not true, you know, like that I could fly, and it was just funny, right? It was like somebody writing like a Marvel comic or something. And I came back and I tried to be funny again, and it backfired because I thought people could remember that I was being funny before, but they didn't remember. Because I originally did it because I had to as like punishment because I wasn't paying attention and they thought it was funny. But and then I told stories and then they got mad at me because, and I didn't realize it was because I was in a cult. And that's actually what they actually believed, that kind of stuff from their leader, was like enlightened and had looked into past lives and could levitate and could do this, that, and the next thing. And then so if you say something even remotely similar to that, then you get labeled as being cynical and like trying to like usurp. Now you want to be like the enlightened leader, and it's like no, I was joking, and then they're like, no, you weren't joking, you were serious, and like, yeah, so I had to drop out. But that was all because of the whole, nobody was tethered in reality. People got so accustomed to believing what their own like group of people were believing and started using their own words for everything that it became this us versus them thing, and like we're better than all other religions. And then we started to, I remember we were identifying with our religion as what we didn't believe in. You know, you wouldn't even tell people, oh, what's Buddhism? Oh, we believe in this and that. No, we'd be like, we don't believe in Jesus. Really? You don't believe in Jesus? Why? Because we're Buddhists. We believe in Buddha. Okay. And then I got into an argument with a bunch of kids going up to this camp up above Boulder when I was like 8. I was really young. But it was like Christmas, and I'm like, oh, it's not Christmas, it's Children's Day. And they're like, what do you mean it's Christmas? And I'm like, no, Children's Day, because Christmas is for children, for the presents. And they're like, what? No, Christmas, everybody gets presents on Christmas. It's when you get together and you're present. And I was like being really arrogant about it. But then they're still doing it today. Like they're still like the Buddhists are like, we don't celebrate Christmas, we celebrate Children's Day. And it's like they're trying to replace society and creating this like us versus them. When Christmas isn't even really a Christian religion. Christmas was appropriated from the Romans when they had their winter solstice celebration, and then they switched Jesus's birthday from April to January 25th to roll it all in. And then the trees came from Germany, from when they brought the kings over from Germany back in the late 1700s. They brought the Christmas tree with them, and that became popular. And so it's just a cultural thing. So now you're trying to like culturally cause all these like schisms and divisions because there was no foundation. There's no like common ground with everything. And yeah, so I think that's like what led to where we are now, where people just sit, like YouTube is a huge industry, like insanely huge. I look on YouTube and it's all these people you would have these people just giving instructions to people of what they think, which are really like, which should be common knowledge. And then you have these like enclaves and not communicating with each other, and it's like a culture of people being told what to think, you know, like these right wing channels, all these with like millions and millions and millions of subscribers, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of hits. It's like if all these people are getting all those hits and subscribing from everybody, like what are people doing with their time? Are they just laying around in their houses watching fucking YouTube all day long? And then when they're not watching YouTube, they're like playing video games. Like that's not going to leave any time left over to actually study and like continue to learn stuff that we can all agree on, like stuff that's on Wikipedia. And then that causes people to be so ignorant that people start to try to argue with you about stuff that's on Wikipedia, and that Wikipedia is false. I was doing a video. I used to do like alien type videos like 15 years ago, 10, 15 years ago. And so a lot of what I thought at the time New Agers, but then now it's just like conspiracy theorists and people. Sometimes people would like write stuff and like that makes no sense. Like once somebody wrote back, this woman, it was an old woman too, I think, wrote back and was like, "No, you don't understand. The Bible was written by the Roman Empire and so it's all fake and false. Don't pay attention to it." And what they didn't understand was that all those books were compiled by Constantine, but he didn't write the books from scratch. Like that's not the same thing. But she couldn't tell the difference because she didn't have any like basic education. And so then people can get up and just start making stuff up and making their own religion and because they're not tethered to anything. And so that's what happens when you have there's too many rich people who aren't tethered to reality. So like Peter Thiel, Donald Trump, Elon Musk, all the leaders of the third world dictatorships, it turns out that they only follow the law because they have to. I was talking to this in the video that I did before, the idea is if you're going to be a lawyer, then you should understand law, like history and law, and you should understand why laws come around and that the reason for laws are to preserve people's rights and what human rights are and that everybody gets an equal shake because we all live in equal bodies with equal power of minds, and that the way that you can distinguish the difference is from a level playing field, and so the real cream of the crop rises to the top, and not but we all have the same resources, and because we're all equipped with the same tools, but we all need have these laws that grow with our society and become fine-tuned. But then if you have these people come around who only look at the law not from a grounded, tethered, common sense and actually well-roundedly educated way, then they just follow the law because they have to. Somebody becomes a lawyer not because they believe in the law, but because lawyers make a lot of money. And then you just follow the law because you have to. And then if you see of a way to get around the law, then you can make up these tricks. And then they have to constantly fine-tune the law to guard against people who know the tricks to break the law. So all they want to do is break the law, and that's dangerous because if they get powerful enough, they can completely topple the whole society. They just rewrite all the laws, and they get rid of democracy, and the whole country comes crashing down. Like the end of the Roman Republic, where they used to have elected consuls and that were only in power for a year, and they would take turns day by day, so that one consul could get checked by the other consul, and then you get out of office in a year, and then you get elected into another one, and that's when the Roman Republic was what created the Roman Empire. The Roman Empire inherited the Republic and then destroyed it when it turned into because the rich people just followed the law until they can get powerful enough to just break the law and become like the emperor, and that's kind of like what we're seeing now with America. Like Donald Trump gets in power, pretending he believes in democracy, and he probably stole the election anyway because he won all the swing states, which nobody does. And he won a swing state by way more than he did last time. Only this time everybody voted for the Democrat except for him. And then the votes for him in these swing states were steady and then suddenly spiked. So then if he actually doesn't believe in democracy from cheating, that means he'll eventually try to get rid of voting. And so that's what he's talking about now. And now he wants a third term, and saying this is going to be your last election because then we're going to go into totalitarianism because we need to, because of the woke leftists with their fake news will destroy the country if you don't. So we need to have martial law and just declare a state of emergency and just come up with any excuse. And, when people get too powerful, they start to create their own laws, like that are insane too. Like Commodus tried to rename Rome, Commodium. Caligula tried to repurpose the statue in the Judea as a statue of him because they wanted the Jews to pray to him as God. Nero made his horse consul. I mean, these people are just cynical. They don't understand the law, and they think everybody else is such an idiot that they're so smart they can say whatever they want. But it makes no sense, because if you can then make animals consuls, then you just kill the whole idea of consulship, because the next generation will be like, well, an animal didn't have anything to say. And if the animal's a consul, then I guess the consul doesn't have anything to say. So why do we even have consuls? Exactly. Let's just have the emperor, and then the emperor sits behind his throne and then just blows money on like games and for himself. Like Commodus expended tons of money having these like games in the Colosseum, where he killed like 1,000 gladiators, because he would have them poisoned before he'd fight them, and then he killed like thousands and thousands of animals, and because that's how he pumped up his ego. It's like, and now we have like Donald Trump Part 2, where he has to win every single golf tournament he's in, even in tournaments where he's the only competitor on his own golf course, and then he makes a big plaque that he puts on the wall that he won, and fake Time magazines that never existed with photos on them, like, look at all the Time magazines I'm on, but they don't exist, making up a fake battleground on one of his golf courses with a fake story. Like, he said that the entire Potomac River was nothing but blood from the battle that they had between the Americans and the British, and it was like never happened, because he just pumped his ego that his golf course was on the battleground. And so now if you normalize that, then the people who grow up, like his rich kids, like Barron, probably doesn't stand a chance. He's growing up thinking that he can say whatever he wants, and the reality doesn't matter, and just wait until you have enough power to kill all the laws, and then take all of everybody's money and then turn them into slaves, because you didn't have a foundation. You never were taught, the reasons why we have different classes. It's good to have different classes of people, because some people are more intelligent than others, and more politically minded than others, and more serious and good than others, or have better training from family. And so you have to have a system where the cream rises to the top and the smart people become the leaders of society, and not just the rich, because then the rich will just change the rules. And that's kind of what we're doing now. They got rid of the Glass-Steagall Act in '76, where they couldn't gamble with our money, like where they socialized the losses and privatized the gains, and then where they, under Clinton in like 2008, where they got rid of the campaign finance donation maximum, so then rich people could just donate whatever they want and then just pay to get people in power. And then that leads into the world of YouTube, where they can just pay Ben Shapiro and his cronies money to tell everybody that, hire like Matt Walsh to get up there and say that OnlyFans girls need to be treated like school shooters, and just spread hatred for transvestites, and make up stories about wokists, and that they're the wokeisms, or the who want equality and tolerance are the enemy with the fake news, and then that's a breeding ground for insanity. So then when the people come around who are already a little bit soft in the head, they can get bit by the bug of insanity and turn into full-blown psychopaths, sociopaths, schizophrenics, and turn into a full blown, epidemic. And then of course they project, and so then they're like, what about the epidemic of autism? And it's like, dude, how many crazy autistic people do you see walking around? I saw one the other day, and that's like the only one I've seen in my life. Like, what are you talking about? There's an epidemic of like narcissism going around. How about that? And it's because people aren't tethered to reality. And I think the way that you do it is to tether people to reality and give them common sense is by teaching them, like philosophy and real philosophy from Aristotle. Like when they were talking about the classes, the reason they had the different classes was because the landowners were the top of the heap and the top class, and not the merchants, because the merchants were seen as untrustworthy because they were just out there to make money. So this was pre-capitalism, and now we have it where the merchants are the top, and if you make money, you're the top. So that's how we controlled society and protected the poor back in the ancient days. And in Greece was by having different actual set in stone classes, where the classes were the landowners, and their job was to study and learn how to delegate and consult and make wise, thought out decisions, and be gentlemen, talk to the other people from the other city states to do trade with them in a fair way and not step on people's toes. And then below them are the merchants who just care about money, and then below them would be the engineers. Because now we have a world where if you're with new technology, if you're an engineer and you get lucky and happen to engineer something that turns into the new big thing like Facebook. Mark Zuckerberg started out just as a creepy college kid who wanted to make a site to see if somebody was hot or not. It was the most shallow thing ever, and then that turned into networking, and then it turned into Facebook, and now he's a billionaire. But in the beginning, he was just some kid who was like wanted to know who was hot or not, and so that's his foundation. And so they just wants to have a monopoly, and Elon Musk was involved in PayPal, the first it was just in the right place at the right time at the right computer school, because he's good at math and stuff. And then they make PayPal, and then he gets really rich, invests. And so now he owns all these different companies, which you're not supposed to. It's like absenteeism, absentee owning the company. There's no way he could have the time to be involved in all those companies. So he's just the owner bossing people around and stuff. He doesn't even understand what's going on. And that's why these companies are failing. Like the Cybertruck isn't even built correctly. And that's exactly what happened with the French Revolution, where Henry IV so he could consolidate power, brought all of the different governors from all the different parts of France to Versailles and built Versailles, where 10,000 people lived there, where supposedly he could control the entire country that way. But it just turned into absentee landlordism, where there's all these rich people just gobbling up all the extra funds, creating Versailles with those huge grounds and all of the servants, and the Marie Antoinette with her own village out there, completely out of touch with the world. And then they have the little ice age, and they don't even know how to manage feeding the people in the country, because the people in power were just bossing their minions who wherever they came from around, and there was no communication, and then everybody starved, and they had to have the French Revolution, which turned into the ugliest transition ever, with chopping people's heads off left, right, and center. And then you have a leader, Robespierre, who wasn't tethered either, and so then he tried to create his own religion called the religion of the sun, where he was the main deity of it. And then he started dressing with a big sun hat or something like that. They had to chop his head off, and then they brought the kingship back, but then they got for one generation, then they got rid of it and finally figured it out. And that all came about because there was no general, grounded, generally agreed upon, tethered to reality consensual reality about, you know, right and wrong. Like people need to eat, and you need to be managed by somebody who's local and who knows what's going on, talks to the people, and then he goes and talks to the more central, who can then represent their people and talk to central. And so that's why America came about, and everybody embraced America, because we figured out from scratch. We found this new, fresh piece of land to create the whole concept of representative government, you know, because we knew what we didn't want, where you could just tax us whatever you wanted to tax us, not even paying attention to the nuances. So we had to do the Boston Tea Party, and then we create Congress and House of Representatives and the Senate and you know, mayors, and we figured out a way to communicate the poor to the rich. We did create the Electoral College to try to let the aristocracy have their foot in the door, but then that's backfiring at us again now, 250 years later, where it's not even doing what it's supposed to do. It's not now the people who are like have the actual electors who can vote for the president are just bought off and paid off and put in power by whoever rich person pays for their campaign. And so, you know, we should get rid of the Electoral College because of that, because we have technology now that will preserve, you know, the intellectual class by shining to the top through you know, all the different mechanisms you can use to show that you're smart with like YouTube and websites and stuff. And yeah, so that's the main problem. It all starts from the beginning, you know, and that's why whenever you have a change in society, it's never from the old people changing their minds. Like you have some like dude writes a really good book and finally explains it to everybody that they never got it before, you know, or you know, new religion, or like people suddenly have a war and then they figure out how to do it right. No, what change comes about because the people in power retire and then die, and then they get replaced by people who were raised right, and then the people who were raised right are more appropriate to the new world, and then they manage the new world in a better way because they're from that world. And so that's why education for, you know, ever since you're a kid and growing up is so important, because if you don't educate kids right and you don't give them a proper foundation, and you never explain to them the concept of democracy, and that, you know, like everybody having a fair share, like a quality of life, is related to everybody having the ability to vote for their leader and having a say in what they want, because they have a different perspective from wherever they are, and they can put their input you know, but instead, if we have what we have now, where it's these, they were never taught that. We never had philosophy growing up, or government or history. And so people just, the only thing that matters is, can you do a computer program to make money? Okay, well then you can invest, and now you become Peter Thiel. And you're out there like going, whatever that is. Yeah, type Peter Thiel democracy, whatever that is. I'm sure you'll see the clip. And then these idiots, you can see they're not even, their brains don't even work right. Like they can't even talk. Like you interview Peter Thiel and he's sweating bullets. And you can see he's dead-eyed, dead in the face, and he just stutters, and he doesn't have an answer for anything. Like the interview that they gave him after Luigi Mangione killed the United Healthcare CEO. He's like, what do you think about how to fix the whole wealth discrepancy? And he's just like, I mean, probably what he really wanted to say was, that's why we need to make enclaves. We need to make walled cities with the rich people behind them, and then we can push all the buttons to create it. So then you've got like the Wizard of Oz situation, or one of these like dystopian futures with like Zorg living on the top, like with the Fifth Element, living on the top of the tower where nobody can access them. Zorg Industries owns everything. And so now we get to where we are now, where like holding companies and multinational corporations own everything. Like Stellantis buys up all the different cars And so now it's just these brands that don't even mean anything, and then they start mismanaging them and like not right driving, like creating them right. And so now you're driving around in a Jeep that lasts like only the 10th amount of time as like the Jeep built from 20 years ago, and just mismanaged from. And then of course there's not enough money to invest in R&D or like or paying people fair wages, because the rich people have to make $400 million a year from their, just because they see themselves as just as good as the sports hero that they partied with last night, who makes $400 million a year. And if the sports hero makes that much, I have to make that much because I'm a star too. Well, now that you're a star, that makes you innately smarter than everybody. So now we have to create a new class of people who are like the God being people, but they don't actually believe that. So then they don't have to prove it. So then they just get to bark at you, their orders. And then you go, and so then the only industry available is where you can work for the rich family, but then the rich family gets to create their own like rules for society and tell you how it is, even though if it doesn't make sense. So then they have to do the dress code just because they say so. And if you ask them, maybe they'll give you the courtesy of telling you why. And that's because it always was like that in the past. And so don't you understand history? That's how it was always in the past. And so now they're better at history than you, because they know that, because dress codes existed in the other totalitarian dictatorship. And then you can't answer because, oh, you have to get back to work. There's just no ability to talk. That's all because of bad education, and there's no tether to reality. There's no foundation. You know, because if you have a foundation, then you can build off that, and you don't even have to be like an expert in any field. You can be like a Renaissance man, where you know a little bit about everything, you know. And it's not like it doesn't have to be like a master of all trades. I mean, a knowledge of all trades, master of none, or whatever that is. People, you just have a general common sense, and then everything builds off of that. So if you grow up going, oh yeah, everybody's equal, everybody equal intelligence, equal opportunity, equal strength of body. It's just what gets you ahead is your work ethic, and you know, everybody deserves to have a roof over their head. Everybody deserves to get hired for a job if they apply to a basic job. Like me, I'm not allowed to get hired. I've applied to 80 jobs on Indeed last year, another 80 jobs on Indeed this year, to any and every job, just the most basic jobs, and like all the jobs you have to have like 2 years experience working in a supermarket stocking vegetables, or you won't hire me. So now so now we're all like enclaves, like the supermarket people, and you have to be a supermarket guy since you're 12. So you're going to hire like a 16-year-old kid who lives in his mother's house and doesn't need the money because he's 16, and what that's going to be his career, but they won't hire me because I don't have the 2 years of experience or whatever. And so then you just shut people out because you don't have that general basic foundation that people deserve work. People deserve to get hired, period, you know? And then, people deserve health care. Now it's this big argument. Oh, do you deserve health care? You do not deserve health care. And you got all these rich people. No, you don't deserve health care because, or you don't deserve a retirement fund. That's the new thing. People don't deserve Social Security or Medicaid. They're after Medicare. Medicare should be privated because you should be able to invest your own money in your own 401k from your job that you get, and it's tough shit on you if you weren't responsible enough by the time you retire, and so now you have to be in the streets, and look what you did to yourself. It's like, it's not that simple, you know. People run into money problems and they dip into that wealth and they squander it. Normal people, and we always do it. It's like human nature. And also, not everybody has the opportunity to work for some big ass company and make a bunch of extra money that they can store on the side. It's better to just have the government manage for it, just to make sure that we all have enough money to live on after, when we're too old to take care of ourselves, and create, social safety nets, and entitlements for poor people. The whole reason that there's rich people don't want to is because they're addicted to money. Money is their god. They make a little bit of money and then they just want to make more money, and then that's how they value themselves. And then now there's not enough money for the social net, and they think that it's because, and that's what all these like third world people are going to come in and gobble up all of the extra, take advantage of all of the different social safety net programs. And that's why we need to get rid of the social safety net programs. So you don't need to get rid of the programs. Just follow the law and don't let the people in the country. And if they come here and they decide that they're going to pay into the social security net to their taxes and then not get their retirement because they're not a full citizen, I mean, that's them doing it to themselves because they moved in here from another country. But like people don't have any, they're not tethered to reality, and they don't have the central basic value structure to go, hey, people deserve a roof over their head and to quality of life. And so just make it happen. Then they just make an excuse to make it not make it happen. So, yeah, I think it all stems down to your childhood, when you were like, how you were raised. And that's how you fix the world. You just let the old people die who you can't change. And then hopefully their children can come up and have some common sense. But I think that's one of the main problems of society is people they're not grounded in any ideology. And so we need to change society by making it so that people have to show your ideology, basically, since you're a kid. Because then you can expose the people who don't have an ideology. And then those people can kind of can stay in their own class system of being the merchant or being the engineer, but not getting involved in politics. Politics should be reserved for people who can see the world from 30,000 feet up, people who can see the big picture, people who are polymaths, who are the Renaissance men, who know history and philosophy and can talk to you about anything. That's who you want in power. That's who you want as a diplomat, not a stuttering, sweaty, dead-eyed, cynical person who wants to just tear it all down. That's all they want to do, is just grab it and tear it down. Like democracy, whatever that means. It's been around for 250 years. Yeah, it's whatever that means because you don't know your history, because you're not grounded in any, consensual reality. You don't have any principles. So I think that's the main problem. So we need to make it so that people are encouraged to share what they actually believe. That whole idea, don't talk politics or philosophy ever, should be thrown out the window. Talk politics and philosophy all the time to everybody, and if it hurts people and blows people up, it's kind of the equivalent of like a vampire screaming and crying before it dies. It's like it's like the devil coming out of them. But then once it's gone, it's gone. Then we can all get back to the table and talk about what we need to talk about. All right, my battery's about to die, so yeah, that's my message. Let's just get out in the open and be real, and be honest and express what we really believe from a young age, so that we don't have these like identity politics and these like talking heads telling everybody what to believe, because nobody has any of their own opinions, and they just follow the leader.